Welcome to the First and Long College Football Show. I am your co-host, Marcus. There's your other co-host, Mason. Today we are going to be breaking down the Purdue Boilermakers. That's right. You know, we are in the middle of our preseason countdown, and what we're doing here is we're counting down some of the most intriguing college football teams. This isn't exactly, you'll see in the top of your screen, number 31 here. This is number 31 in our most intriguing teams in college football, and teams that we feel like have a direct path to affect the college football playoff. Doesn't necessarily mean that we think the Purdue Boilermakers are making the college football playoff. Look, crazier things have happened, but that's not going to be my prediction today. Spoiler alert. My thing is, Mason, this team has got momentum. And it's not exactly about the wins on the field because, I mean, look, last year they were 4-8, right? They did win 2 of their last 3 games, and that's always a good thing to end the year. With some wins, that's always a good thing. But the transfer portal class that these guys brought in, the recruiting class that these guys have brought into this program, I know are the building blocks to turning a program around into building a winning program. Going to be very tough to do in the Big Ten. Mason, how are you today? Are you ready to talk some Purdue football?
Man, it's something we probably didn't do enough of last year is talk about Purdue football. They kind of just really snuck in under the rug. And if you weren't paying really close attention to college football, you might have missed them. And not to say that we missed them, but I think that we were hesitant to talk about what they were doing as the season goes on because we didn't know if it was real or not. And what they did is they won 4 games, which isn't that impressive, but I think we were kind of making a mental note of how tough they were playing and ultimately kind of what they were doing in the Big Ten. Then you couple that with the moves that they made in the transfer portal this year. And I think that we're setting up for a pretty fun season for Purdue. Like you said, spoiler, we're not picking them to go to the playoffs or anything like that. But I think that this will be a very improved team from 4-8 last year, and that's why they made our most intriguing teams list.
Absolutely. Look, last year, it's no secret the defense was not there, Mason, and it was first year for a coach, Ryan Walters, who is a defensive guy, right? This was a guy who played in the defensive secondary at Colorado in the early 2000s and has made his way to very different, a few different stops. Defensive coordinator at Mizzou, at Illinois. Sorry for the background noise there. They have legalized side-by-sides in the county that I live in here in Georgia, so we're going to have side-by-sides going up and down the road, and there's nothing I can do about that anymore. So anyway, the defense has got to get better, Mason. Gave up 41 points to Ohio State last year. Nobody is sitting at home talking about how great Ohio State's offense was last year, Mason. Not the strength of that team at all. Gave up almost 40 points to Wisconsin last year. There were a bunch of different games where there was over 30 points given up, and it was, to the detriment of this team. And anytime you're giving up 30 points a game, you're going to have a record like 4-8. So it's no secret that the defense has got to get a lot better. But before we jump into the defense, let's kind of through our offense and take a look and see. As we said, 4-8 last year. There's a picture of Ryan Walters there. Look, I really like this guy. I like his demeanor. I like his style. It seems like some of the players are bought in. He's obviously bringing talent to West Lafayette, so I think that's obviously a very big deal. Let's talk about Hudson Card though, because for all intents and purposes, this is going to be your quarterback this year. God forbid, an injury or something. And Mason, this is kind of a college football journeyman, right? A guy that has made his way to a couple of different spots now and has pretty much been successful everywhere that he's been. Kind of thrown into the fire at Texas there in 21. Not a great Texas team. I wouldn't say horrible, but not a great Texas team there. that he was a part of. But in 2022, I thought he played really well. Whenever he got opportunities to do so, you can see almost 70% completions as a quarterback in 22. But last year in 23, did a really good job for Purdue. Was a honorable mention as far as all conference player and things like that. He's going to be exercising his COVID season, and he will be back. And I think that the experience it shows whenever he's out there on the field. As you go through the spring game, I definitely feel as though he has the most command over the offense amongst the quarterbacks. What do you think about Hudson Card? I feel like we know pretty much everything there is to know about Hudson Card. We've seen him play lots of football. Can he level up this year? I think is the biggest question.
Yeah, and I think we won't know that answer until we see this offensive line play. I think that was a big reason for his dip in completion percentage last year. And, it was his first full season playing quarterback as well. But I don't think that is the Hudson Card that we have come to know. I don't think that a 58, less than 60% completion percentage is really what he's all about. And this is, this will be his really his fifth year, playing overall. And I think this needs to be the year that he gets that he improves the most, right? And I think he can. I think that this offensive line is going to be a little bit better, which we'll break down here in a minute. But if he continues to be a sub 60% passer, and if he's not getting the job done, there is a freshman that I think you can kind of circle and say, hey, this guy's got potential. Probably has more potential than Hudson Card even. So that's Marcos Davila, who's coming out of Texas as well, and played really well as a high school senior, top 50 overall player, number 15 quarterback in the nation, depending on what recruiting service you look at. 6'3", 230, and overall just looks really fluid, looks really sound in how he plays, and is the number 2 quarterback for a reason, as far as jumping the redshirt freshman in Brown. And look, I'm excited to see what he's going to bring to the table. But I think if you're a Purdue fan, you kind of want to pump the brakes on him and say, hey, let's hope that Hudson Card's able to get this done behind this offensive line that you just now pulled up.
Yeah, and just to I didn't mean to go to the next slide yet. I'm sorry, I wasn't hitting the closing credits on you.
I thought the door was closed. In that case, let me get back on Hudson. No,
I wasn't hitting the ending music on you, trying to get you off the stage there. But I 100% agree. I was really impressed with Marcos Davila. This is a guy from Midland, Texas, and I'm sure you just said it. I was over here plotting my revenge against the side-by-side that's riding down my neighborhood road over and over again.
We can't hear it, just so you know. We can't hear it. I know it's a distraction.
You can't hear it?
But we can't hear it, no.
All right. Well, I live out in the country in Georgia, and you may now just ride whatever you want on the roads, apparently. So no matter what age. So 10-year-old, sure. Ride with the cars on your four-wheeler. No problem. This is Jasper County, Georgia, baby. Really, really impressed with Davila, a guy that played some high-level college football, obviously. Mason, he looked really comfortable out there. I'm not saying he's ready to go out and play Big Ten football day in and day out. But as far as freshmen go, I thought he looked really comfortable. And part of the reason I think that he did feel comfortable, I don't think it was a perfect effort in that spring game at all, but I definitely saw some improvement with the offensive line. You can see what the projected starters will be. This is subject to change, guys. I mean, look, this is one of the biggest differences for this team this year versus last year. Coach Ryan Walters talked about it post-game, talking about how they can rotate 3 different offensive line groups now. And I don't think he's saying that the third offensive line group is as good as the first, but Mason, this was a team that didn't even have the adequate amount of scholarship players last year. And so just filling the coffers with warm bodies was an improvement from last year, but I don't think they did that. I think they went and got capable players. And as you can see, you've got 4 FBS transfers in this group, 2 JUCO recruits, 4 incoming freshmen. And, oh, by the way, that returning production, Jalen Grant, was a starter last year. Now, he was a starter on an offensive line that gave up a ton of sacks. So I'm not saying that he's the answer to everything, but I think you've got a 6th man kind of sitting in the wings there that has got experience and will be able to be a utility player on the offensive line, and I think that's going to obviously be a big help. Everybody knows the line of scrimmage is where these battles are won in the Big Ten, the SEC, really all throughout college football, but especially in those big Power 2 conferences. I think that this should be a much better offensive line. We will have to wait and see. And look, so what I did here, I pulled up everybody that is projected to start on this first-team offense. So everything you'll see on this graphic here is going to be your first-team offense. Mason, we'll start off at the very top here with the wide receiver group. C.J. Smith was, a guy that you and I knew about, obviously, before he left to go to Purdue. This is a guy that was one of several Georgia Bulldog transfers that went over to Purdue. Maybe that's why they got our attention, Mason. They're stealing all our damn players. C.J. Smith is not track fast, Mason. Ryan Walters says that C.J. Smith is Olympic fast.
He is.
And I'm interested to see that Olympic speed come to fruition in the fall, but I could see glimpses of it in the spring game, even though they weren't allowed to tackle him, and the first team was not allowed to tackle first team in the spring game there. Blazing fast. And for all intents and purposes, the hands looked good. I think that was a really good pickup. As a Georgia Bulldog fan, I'm super happy that this guy is going to be able to be in a room where he's going to be a go-to player. And he wasn't going to be able to be that at Georgia right away. So I guess I get why C.J. Smith did what he did, and I think it's going to pay off for the Boilermakers at the X spot there. Jamal Edrin Sawinski, yeah, I mean, those are dudes, right? I mean, they're not like household names or anything, but I think this is going to be a serviceable wide receiver core nonetheless.
Yeah, I think, using the cover 3 nomenclature there,
Jags.
I would say Sawinski's a Jag, and Edrin's probably a Jag plus. He's borderline Jag plus. If you don't know what we mean, that's just a guy. Jag is just a guy, and
tell him, let him wonder.
Yeah, right.
Tune in to the next episode, and we'll tell you what that means.
Yeah, right. and just keep kicking the can. Never tell them. Actually, just
if you hit the subscribe button, it will actually pop up and give you an explanation.
Yeah. So, but C.J. Smith, obviously a stud coming in, and track athlete for sure. He was the fastest guy in Florida in 2020 and 2021, and he did that at 6'3", which is a pretty lanky guy. So a true X receiver, a true top 150 overall player coming out of high school, and I'm really excited to see what he does here for the Boilermakers. And then the other Georgia transfer that came in is Denylon Morissette, who was another top 150 overall player, another big guy who's coming over from Georgia and can play. I mean, when we talk about the transfers that they brought in from Georgia, they weren't just bottom feeders. They weren't walk-ons. I mean, these were all bona fide players. All of them were 4 stars, except for, I think C.J. Madden was the only one who wasn't a 4-star coming out of high school. And he was a guy who came on late. He was, I remember his recruitment. I remember, and I know we're not on defense yet, but funny story about C.J. Madden. Between his sophomore and junior year, they told him he could play football, but he needed to put on some weight because he was about 200 pounds, and trying to play as a defensive end just wasn't going to cut it. So he said he started eating a lot of peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, and that's what did it and got him. He gained 30 pounds that summer and got up to 235 and looked like a football player at that point. But nonetheless, that's why they have our eye. those players in particular. And CJ Smith is a bona fide stud. I'm excited to see what he does. And he wasn't going to play at this much, at least at Georgia. He wasn't going to be the true X. So he took his talents elsewhere. And I think it's going to pay dividends for this Purdue team this year.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, and there are tons of transfers coming into this offense. So there's tons of guys that could potentially answer the bell, but as we sit right now, that list you see is your first team offense as it sits. We'd be remiss, Mason, if we didn't mention Devin Mockabee and his role that's going to be on this offense. Devin Mockabee is the heartbeat of this thing, in my opinion, and a definite leader on this offense. I think that he is super reliable and somebody that you can definitely give a lot of love to. And speaking of love, how about Reggie Love? A guy that you bring in through the transfer portal. He may be on this next slide there. It looks like he's down there at the bottom of your screen. Reggie Love comes over from Illinois, and you'll notice trends with this team as you dissect this roster. This coach went to certain schools and pulled multiple guys, and Illinois is a place that he worked, and lots of guys followed him over from Illinois, and Reggie Love being one of them. And between Reggie Love and Devin Mockabee, those are going to be your guys that are going to really be the 1-2 punch in this running back room. As I watched the spring game, Mason, I saw a lot of green. I saw a lot of very raw play out of the running backs beyond those two guys. Saw guys really kind of struggling to pick up pass rush. And look, that's common. That's very common, and you want to see it in the spring game. You don't want to see it in the season, but I think that those two guys are going to be really important for this offense this year, and especially Devin Mockabee. What do you think about the running back room? Elijah Jackson is a guy that I saw that I like the potential of the guy. I think he's got a lot of potential, but very raw. So I'm thinking third string and down in that running back room. Kind of some question marks that we're still kind of trying to answer, and hopefully there's not going to be a ton of attrition in that position, because I think that could be trouble.
Yeah, and you mentioned Mockabee being kind of the guy there. Ultimately, I like the way he plays. I like the way he runs. Has a lot of heart, which is really fun to see in a running back. It's somebody who probably
got to be a little crazy, right?
Yeah, to run behind that offensive line last year, I think so, because that was an atrocious offensive line outing. So, look, this team got better at O-line. If nothing else, they got better by numbers at O-line, and they have the depth, like you mentioned, to go out and perform, with 6 or 7 dudes that can actually play. So ultimately, I think that whoever's at running back, their play is going to be elevated by all of this. Should be a good unit and fun unit to watch.
Yeah. As you can see, there's Denalon Morissette there. At X on the second team offense. Any of those guys in gold there, you can see our transfer portal guys. You can go look those guys up and their stats and experience and everything. And man, there's just a bio on every single dude that you look at, and just a trail of schools that everybody has left and transferred to other schools. Is pretty wild. Welcome to 2024. Let's go over to the defense, Mason. There's the CJ Madden man that you were speaking of, and Nyland Green, another UGA transfer. Another guy that really caught my eye, Mason, when I'm looking over this roster and whenever I'm listening to people talk about this team, is Kendrick Breedlove, and he'll be playing the star position. They talked about CJ Smith and his Olympic speed, and the fact that him and Breedlove are within a step of one another out there running as far as speed goes for this team. So I see a guy that can definitely be a name that people are talking about outside of Purdue Boilermaker households. This is a guy that's got a lot of potential. I like Nyland Green. We didn't get to see him a ton at the University of Georgia, but Mason, we know that talent is there. As you said, these were highly coveted, highly recruited guys out of high school. I am ecstatic for Purdue that they were able to get this talent on hand, and I trust that Ryan Walters is the right guy to plug and play with these guys on this defense. What's your thoughts on the defense? I told you he's not on this one. He's on the second string. Let's kind of look at that for just a second. Number 99, Jare Ojada. Mason, he's a freaking man. I mean, he was bullying his way around the pocket in the spring game. I am really interested to see this right defensive end. I hope he wasn't just picking on the worst offensive lineman of the day. But I'm telling you, Mason, every time the quarterback turned around, number 99 had one of them big bear paws in his face. This defense has got to get a lot better, Mason. We spoke about it at the top of the cast here. This team gave up over 30 points left and right last year. What can they do to get it fixed? Is it going to be a step in the right direction this season? We're going to pull up the schedule here in a minute. We'll see, who they've drawn on the schedule this year in the Big Ten. But if this defense isn't better, then I don't think this team will be a whole lot better, unfortunately.
Yeah, and just looking up Ojada, this was a guy who came over from Franklin College, a D3 school, and had 53 tackles last year, 32 solo, 17 tackles for a loss, 9.5 sacks, total of 62 yards lost, and recovered 2 fumbles, and had 4 block kicks. So that's a heck of a season at any level. And I think that this is a guy who's going to be able to come in and contribute right away. Coming from D3, there's going to be a learning curve. So playing behind CJ Madden, I think, doesn't hurt. But there may be some situations where his skill set is needed. Definitely on kickoff defense. What would you call that? Field goal defense.
Right.
So definitely, playing the line there, try to get him some opportunities to block a kick. I mean, that's four block kicks in a season is crazy. But yeah, ultimately this defense, there's a lot of returning talent. A lot of guys who are, a couple of guys who are coming in, and CJ Madden and Nyland Green, as well as Ojada and Breedlove, who we mentioned, who are all going to contribute right away, and guys who are talented. And again, I keep going back to what intrigues us about this program. And it's the fact that they brought in important playmakers, or playmakers at important positions, I should say, who are going to affect the football game in some capacity. Whether that's, the freshman class that came in this past year, or through the transfer portal. I feel like they really hit on a lot of key transfers on the defensive side of the football. There's you don't have to look any further than the defensive side of the football to see that.
Yeah, and bringing in some depth on the defensive line and the edge spot there was big. You mentioned CJ Madden earlier, the edge spot. Jamarius Dinkins coming over from the University of Kentucky to play defensive line, I think will be a big help. This was a team that definitely struggled defensively on the lines of scrimmage last year, and I feel like those questions have been answered, at least partly. And I don't fully know how this is going to translate onto the field, but I definitely feel like the product overall is going to be better. Going to at least be, look, it's like the old Bobby Bowden used to say, first we lose by a lot, then we lose by a little, then we win by a little, then we win by a lot. And there is no substitute for that, in my opinion, for Purdue. You've got to, there might be a lot of close games this year, Mason, with Purdue and their schedule. Maybe some close losses. Probably going to be some close losses. But giving up over 30 points a game, you're never giving yourself a chance to win. I think this team is going to be serviceable enough to give themselves a shot to win some games in the fourth quarter. We'll see if they have the depth to do it. Let's jump over to the 2024 schedule. This schedule is really front loaded, and if you can get through those first 6 games or so, I think you feel a little bit better. But Mason, buddy, this is a tough one, and the win total, the projection is set at 4.5. So let me say this: if Purdue wins 5, not only did they beat the projected win total by half a game, but I believe they defied a lot of odds and they got a lot better. If this team can win 5 games this season, in my mind, it will be a step up because of the fact of how hard the schedule is. Notre Dame, Oregon State. I know Oregon State lost a lot, but man, that is a prideful group there, man. And I think that that's still a tough game. And it's on the road. It's early in the season, luckily, because that weather gets disgusting at Oregon State later in the season. But then you got Nebraska, and you got Wisconsin, Illinois. Yet to be seen what they'll be about. But Oregon, Northwestern returns a ton of talent this year. Okay, if you go to sleep on Northwestern, they'll beat your ass. All right, Ohio State, you got to go play there. Penn State, Michigan State, Indiana. Pretty tough, man.
Mm-hmm.
Big Ten didn't pull no punches with the Boilermakers, brother. What do you think about the schedule? I think this makes it extremely tough to hit that 5.
Yeah, absolutely. We are excited for this program. We are thinking that it's heading in the right direction. That does not necessarily equate to wins and losses, or wins, necessarily in a sense that they're getting better. I do think that they will get to 5. I don't know which 5 they're going to get. But hey, looking at the schedule, I mean, Notre Dame's going to be really tough. Nebraska's going to be really tough. Wisconsin's tough. Oregon's going to be tough. Ohio State, Penn State, those are pretty much all going to be losses, I think you can say. And then, like you said, Northwestern, they lost to them last year. That they shouldn't have lost, but they did last year. Now, Northwestern is getting better too. That's another school that is intriguing, maybe not as much to me as Purdue, but they're also doing what they can to get better. So did Purdue make enough of a step forward this offseason to get over that game? I think that's a question mark. That's a game that you look at, you circle and say, this is a sort of prove it game to me, and that's kind of the game that'll get them over that 5-win hump. Michigan State, I think, is a game you can look at and say we should win that game. Indiana, you should win that game. Illinois, that should be a win as well. And then in week 1, I think that you've got to for sure win as well. So there are your 5 right there if you need to get there. I think Oregon State's another one that you could, if you win against Oregon State, you're really setting yourself up for a potential bowl game at the end of the year. But to me, I think Northwestern's sort of the catalyst for the whole season. It's a game you lost last year. Can you get over the hump, win the game this year, and prove that you're not going to lose to teams that you shouldn't lose to anymore? And I think that's a sign of a program that's getting better and headed in the right direction. Win the games you're supposed to win, and fight in the other games. Make it close against Nebraska. Make it close against Wisconsin. Right. Take Penn State at home to the final drive of the game. Something like that. I think you can really hang your hat on if you're Purdue and say that, this is a team that's building for 2025. And I really believe that. I think a lot of these transfer portal pieces that they brought in will have eligibility in 2025. So if they do well this year and give those players a reason to come back to your program and not transfer to a different program, I think that could be really exciting with the freshman that we mentioned, coming in Davila, and what he could potentially do, in 2025, I think would have a lot of eyes on the Purdue program heading into the the following season. But in 2024, to be ahead of schedule, it just means to win 5 games. I think if you go bowling in 2024, that's a very successful season for the Boilermakers. And I don't think that that's that far out of the realm of possibility. You've got some really tough games in comparison to other Big Ten schedules. I think this is probably one of the worst ones where you've got Ohio State, Oregon, and Penn State. And then you've got a non-con game against Notre Dame, which, that's not a Big Ten game, but ultimately, you get those 3 big boys, and it's a tough road to haul.
It definitely is. I think that Nebraska game could be the difference in a bowl game or not, Mason. They're going to host Nebraska. That'll be Nebraska's first road game with a freshman quarterback. I would assume he'd be starting by that point. If somehow Purdue can win that football game, and I say somehow as if Nebraska's some kind of powerhouse, they're not necessarily. I think they'll be much better this year. They're number, I think, 33 in our countdown here, so you can go check that out if you'd like to watch those sorry no good Huskers if you're a Purdue fan, right? So really excited for the Purdue Boilermakers. I'm going to keep an eye on all the recruiting stuff that they've got going on. It seems like they are pulling in some really talented guys that are young and growing in this system. We'll see how they retain that talent. And if you're a Purdue Boilermakers fan, or you're just a college football fan in general, maybe you're a bettor and you're trying to get a grip on all these teams like we are before we start laying some bets down in the regular season like we like to do. Come join us. Hit that subscribe button. Hit the like button. Help us out. You hit that like button, and then it helps you to figure out what you like to watch, okay? And you like to watch First and Long. And we certainly are appreciative of it, and so glad that you joined us today. Thank you so much. Hey, drop us a comment. Let us know what you think the record is for the Boilermakers in 2024. Do you like Ryan Walters as your head coach? What do you think about Hudson Card? Drop it in the comment section. I'd love to talk with you, or we can talk about any team. Mason, thank you so much. Everybody have a great night, and we'll see you next time on the First and Long College Football Show.